The voices of the women who accompanied Jesus. Day 3, Wednesday. The voice of the unnamed, untold women. I owe a lot to my sisters who come from Galilee as I do, and my sisters from Bethany. They have stories to tell that make people sit up and listen. No one has ever told my story. No one has ever taken any interest. And yet I was there, and they needed me. I didn't need to be married to some well-thought-of man or have been dramatically healed or whatever to be important. I made a difference by being there. You know, even now, women make up half of the world's population, do 2/3 of the world's work, and 1/10 of the world's income, and own less than 1/100th of the world's property. Life or death is often the stark choice facing women in the global south. To choose life means struggling against all the odds to survive, means working from dawn until dusk on the land trying to eke out a living, means selling your body to clothe your children, means looking after 8 grandchildren because your own child has died of AIDS or Ebola, means risking life and limb in a sweatshop to feed your family, means living in a refugee camp while your menfolk are away fighting a war, means living in fear of the next pregnancy because you know you could be one of the women who die every minute from causes related to pregnancy and childbirth. And yet, despite all, they don't give up. They have courage, and they have each other. They are not alone, isolated from their sisters. They support each other, work together, cry together, even laugh together. And they have God on their side, on the side of all those whose voices need to be heard. Someone told me of Sarah and Mary, not one of the Marys I know. They met during the darkest time of Sarah's life, after she'd lost a bitter custody fight over her son. Sarah, a nurse, wondered how she could contain her emotions and keep her focus on patients during this time. Mary, her new manager, knew right away what she needed. I didn't think I could get up in the morning, says Sarah. Mary made up reasons for me to get out of bed. Making copies, putting together packages, a lot of little things for me to do until I was able to function again. And every day for 2 years, till she would come to wherever I was in the hospital working and relieve me so that I could go to school and have lunch with my son. I can't tell you how much she helped me to grow. I have known many Marys. You'll each have memories of the Marys in your own lives who have helped you to get up in the mornings. The people who've given you courage and have allowed you to borrow their faith for a while, when you are perplexed, when you are terrified. That great cloud of witnesses. And your life will have touched other people in life-changing ways too. There are many women and men in your world today who, lacking in worldly power, are empowered by their faith in God, their passion to make a better society for their children, and their sense of solidarity with one another. But their names are rarely known, and their stories rarely told. One thing Jesus taught me was not to be so preoccupied by the injustices and suffering of the world that I fail to celebrate the goodness of my time. In your day, people who've been condemned to silence for much of history are beginning to speak, to tell their stories, to describe their dreams. Women, Indigenous peoples, and those of non-Western cultures and faiths are finding spaces in which to make their voices heard, telling her stories that have never been heard before. Search and you will find, Jesus said. People who have been searching through history for a sense of identity and belonging are finding what they were looking for. Sometimes, of course, that shows itself as nationalism and fundamentalism. Sometimes, of course, it must feel like consumerism is going to swallow it all up. That's why you must turn away from the din of the media and the clamour of the markets and tune your ears to the lonely voices, the voices that drift from the margins of your social structures, inviting you to share a different vision of how the world might be. The poor will always be among you. Yes, we knew that all too well. But we women who accompanied Jesus, we especially knew something else too. They don't have to suffer alone.